Hi, welcome to the Freedom Habit. My name is Michelle. Thank you for joining me. So, this morning I walked down to the pier as I like to do, and I stopped. There was a beautiful sailboat going by, and I stopped to take a video because I love taking videos down there. It's such a beautiful sky and the ocean. And, I didn't think anything of it. So the sailboat goes by, I got my video, and then I'm standing at the pier watching, the water kind of ripple in. And I do this, and as I watch the ripples, I think of, as this energy coming towards me as it's love, as I'm receiving energy and love. And then when it hits the pier, it ripples back out. And I think of that as like my love going back out to the people that I care about and thinking about. And that's kind of my way of sending them my thoughts and my love and my energy. So, anyway, as I was doing that, looking over the pier, I saw like this family of clownfish. And, it was really nice to see fish because they haven't really they're not around the pier much during the low season. And now that high season is upon us, they're back. So I'm watching them and I noticed that these big ripples started coming in. And what it was from, the sailboat that it went by like 10 minutes earlier was finally starting to reach the pier. And there was like these big ripples. So under the water, naturally, it just started to get, these little clownfish, these poor things, they're just like flopping around. And my first thought was, they're going to leave. They're going to swim away. They're going to run to safety or swim to safety. And I was surprised because they didn't. And I was thinking, God kind of told me, they're doing that because they're trusting the process. They're listening to their intuition and they're doing what they know to do best. Even though the water was getting very heavy and they were getting shook up, they didn't move, they didn't retreat. They were focused. They were there and they were eating, getting algae off these rocks. And that was their vision. And even though their environment was getting shook up, these clownfish never once left that area. And I thought that was interesting. It made me think of myself and times where, my environment got shook up and I allowed it to shake me up. And, I would get anxiety or fear, that old identity where we were programmed to feel, negative thoughts. So I just thought that was an interesting analogy, and it really reminded me of a time in my life. There was times where things would happen, and I would retreat. I would leave. I would leave that environment, or I just didn't have the confidence. I wasn't trusting the process. I didn't believe in myself. So I thought it was really great. And I stayed there for a while because I wanted to see how long they would stay there. And they actually did. After like 5, 10 minutes, I ended up leaving and they were still there. And obviously the water had calmed down by then. I just thought it was really interesting that that source told me about that and put it in my heart, you know, You could be more like that clownfish, Michelle. They're trusting the process. They believe in themselves. Just because their environment is getting uncomfortable, they're staying there because that's their intuition is telling them to. Something else I was thinking is, I'm sure that they've been through that process before. They felt that before, those big waves coming in, that environment that is shaking them up. So what they did is they've adapted to that because, as we change the negative thoughts in our minds, they just become second nature. We don't have to think about it anymore. There's some things that when I first started going through this that I wanted to change. I wanted to get all the negative programming out. I wanted to get that doubt and that uncertainty and the feelings that I had about myself. I wanted that out and I wanted to replace them with positive programming. And I have found that there's some things that I don't even have to remind myself of anymore. There's certain affirmations that I no longer even need to do because now it's just second nature. It's second nature because I've done them, I feel them, and I believe them. And that's really what's important is what we believe about ourselves. And that's always going to affect our energy and the energy that we send out to others. So I just wanted to remind everyone today, I'm really getting really getting into nature and starting to connect the dots between us and some of the creatures around us, and I'm actually enjoying it. I hear spirit will tell me things when I see certain animals and get curious, so I just wanted to share that with you and remind you, you know trust the process, believe in yourself, and know that as you do this it will become second nature. So, all right. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great day.